Yo, Will. Yo, Will. Yo, Will. Right.
Let's not beat around the bush. I bought Army Men Soldiers of Misfortune because it was cheap. It's why I buy any of the Army Men games. Cheap prices aren't the only reason I buy them. I played Army Men 3D and Sarge's Heroes when they were new. I enjoyed them because at the time I had no idea how awful the controls were. This game, Army Men for the PC, was my first online multiplayer experience. I can still kind of picture the computer I used, an off-the-shelf Dell PC from Walmart with a built-in 56K modem. So, I guess low resale value and some fuzzy memories are what make them fun to collect. If you somehow don't know, these are Army Men toys. First made in 1938, they were made of leaded metal, but this was changed to plastic after World War II. The reason for the change? It wasn't because lead is terrible for children, but because plastic was cheaper. Yay, capitalism!
Plastic, plastic, plastic.
I have fond memories of playing with little green men at my great-aunt's house. The ones she had used to belong to my mom's cousins and were manufactured during the Vietnam War. There was a whole slew of soldiers, from riflemen to mortarmen, tanks, and even bridge pieces that I'd use so soldiers could cross a river of tile that cut between two rugs. In 1998, the 3DO company released Army Men for the PC. It's a, real-time tactics game?
Is that even a real genre?
You control Sarge from a mostly top-down perspective to duck, dive, and shoot your way through tan forces. I'd call it a straight-up action title with tank controls, but you can call in a squad of airborne troops and issue basic commands. Sarge also gets to drive vehicles, launch mortars, and call in airstrikes. I guess choosing when to use those counts as tactics, and it's not turn-based, so sure, real-time tactics.
From across the ocean and around the globe, bringing the latest news home to you.
Plastic.
The presentation feels very World War II, but some things are more modern, like Sarge's rifle. Overall, the game fit well with the pop culture boom of the Second World War in the late 90s. Firing it up for this video is the first I've touched it in probably 20 years. Also, recording footage has been a pain, so this is all you'll get to see. You can buy it cheap on Steam and GOG if you want to experience real combat with plastic men.
Today the battle is ours. Tomorrow is up to you.
A year later saw the release of Army Men 3D on the PlayStation, which brought with it polygonal graphics and a third-person camera. It controls surprisingly similar to the PC, with tank movement and a healthy amount of auto-aim. I don't remember if you ever get to command troops, though. Well, the owner's manual doesn't say anything about commanding troops, so I'll go with that. Means I don't have to play the whole game to find out. I assume the sales of both titles were good because the 3DO company developed in-house 14 games under the Army Men banner from 1998 to 2002. They also oversaw the publishing of Army Men games from other developers. If you're thinking that kind of output can't be sustainable for the franchise or the company, you'd be right. 3DO went bankrupt and sold their properties at auction in 2003. You might also be asking, weren't they responsible for the ill-fated 3DO console? That hardware was such a colossal failure, surely that's the reason they went bankrupt. That was my guess too, but when they sold off the rights and inventory, they managed to turn a profit. But then Army Men games started coming out both ends until they went under.
3D.
Before I say anything about AMSM, I have to talk about the controls. They are fascinating to say the least. Oh, and to be clear, I'm playing this on the PlayStation 2. The player avatar controls like a tank, which at this point is a staple for the franchise. The left stick walks forward, backward, and very slowly turns both the avatar and the camera together. The right analog moves the cursor around the screen. Isn't this amazing? It's like a Wii game. No, it is a Wii game. Wow. I have never, in my 23 years of dual analog gaming, come across this before. Did they not have enough people, or money, or development time to give the PS2 port a control layout more standard for the system? It's actually common to have tank controls with a lock-on feature for third-person shooters of this generation, but we're talking 2008 here. There's not much else going on for controls. There is no jump or action button, so all the player will be doing is moving and shooting. In fact, close to half the controller isn't used during gameplay. Was that to keep things simple for kids? There isn't any alternative layouts or customization outside of flight inversion. Fascinating. The game consists of only 3 environments with 5 missions on each one. I'd like to at least see them all, but I'm not too keen on playing 10 missions just to unlock the 3rd stage. Let's see if there are any GameFAQs cheats. Well, there's no cheats section. What about the message board? Oof. I feel bad for Country Fan 1. The game must have been announced with zero information. Do you think they pre-ordered this? I have a rule that I won't force myself to finish a game if I'm not enjoying it, so how about I play this game for an hour and we just check it out. The first mission is to retrieve 12 supply crates fallen behind enemy lines. Sounds like an infiltration mission, but in reality, it's just find 12 objects hidden across the bedroom. This kid really likes army stuff. And Homestar Runner. God, as if I'm playing on the Wii, the cursor likes to shoot off screen. It can also get stuck in the environment, somehow. Like here. Like, I get it that the cursor is pointing at the outside of the bunker, so the kid is shooting backwards at it, but I can't move my cursor. It's stuck. At least the game is good about panning the camera up when you need it. They like to hide enemies outside the top of the screen. Like the other Army Men games I've played, the enemies are accurate and lead their shots. They need to be engaged at a distance so you have enough time to remember the controls and strafe out of the way. Those of you that are prone to night terrors may want to avoid this game. There's a monster under the bed that eats your frame rate. If only I could jump, I'd be able to grab that box. Okay, one crate left, then it's on to the next mission. Hey, you sneaky bastard. The next set of hidden objects we need to find are 9 captured green soldiers. Each one requires a key that's being held by a nearby tan. The difficulty spikes here because the enemy concentration is higher. I mean, just look at how much incoming fire there is. Thankfully, health and ammo pickups respawn, but that also means a healthy amount of backtracking in an environment we've already explored. The mission isn't hard per se, but requires you take it slow. Enemies phase into existence while others parachute in. It's easy to think you're walking through an empty area to suddenly be bombarded. If you're lucky, the enemy won't react at all to you blasting them in the face. I died about a half dozen times before I beat this level. There are no mid-mission checkpoints and it takes about 10 minutes for a full run, so it definitely gets annoying. The soldiers you rescue simply hobble away and despawn. They don't help in any way. They're even ignored by the enemy. There's nothing else interesting to Mission 2, so let's talk about the story. I want to talk about it because, like the controls, it's wholly uninteresting, yet I find myself fascinated by its execution. So, do you remember the opening scene of Toy Story where Andy is playing with the toys in his room? I think that's what this game is going for. A kid just coming up with stories as he plays with his toys. I can get behind that. A world constructed solely from a child's imagination could be amazing. Every time you boot up the game, you have to step through this opening that reads like a children's book, complete with illustrations. Now, here's why I want to know the official story to this game. In the first page of the book, Timmy is clearly much shorter than his bed, and the soldiers look toy-sized compared to him. In the next shot, he seems to have the normal height of a 4-year-old except for the gargantuan size of his bed. Maybe he's got a parent building him custom furniture. Spoiled little shit. Okay, here the Army Man toy in his hand looks like a 6-inch figure. But in the final picture, they're all adults compared to Timmy, who is now fully shrunk. I gotta hand it to this game, it keeps me guessing. Mission 3 mixes things up a little. This time we have to protect 2 green engineers while they each repair a vehicle. The baddies endlessly respawn, so it's just a matter of running circles and stealing aggro long enough for the repair gauges to fill up. In Mission 4, it's back to item hunting, but with a twist. We have to find bombs and detonate them at specific sections of the train track. I bet you're wondering how a game with so many cut corners handles demolitions. Marvelous. The monster from under the bed is back and eating what feels like most of the frames. I did learn the camera is claustrophobic. There are 2 new pickups in these missions, armor and bottle caps. I pray I don't have to explain armor to you. The bottle caps are a frisbee weapon that's meant to ricochet and hit multiple enemies. So far, the game's music has been a looping 1-minute track. I said I'd play the game for an hour, and at this point I've heard it close to 40 times. It's inoffensive and vaguely heroic. It has just enough of a melody to get stuck in my head when I turn off the game. Muting the music highlights how devoid Amsum is of sound effects. This lack of sound is responsible for most of the game's difficulty. There is no bark when enemies are alerted, no roaring of plane engines or rustling of parachutes when troopers drop from the sky. The sound effect for guns firing is so weak you can't hear it with the music playing. Overall, it's a shame the effort in audio is so lacking, since music in the original Army Men games was memorable to me and greatly helped their atmosphere. The briefing for the final bedroom mission says to eliminate all enemies and reclaim a communications building, but it's actually another hunt for hidden objects. A new weapon is introduced, the tennis ball grenades. In a bizarre twist, there are no ammo pickups for your main gun, so if you run out of off-brand Nerf darts, you're stuck with the tennis balls. And because I'm an elite gamer, I nearly died trying to figure out how to aim these things. Hey, do you remember those nail-biting moments in a Call of Duty game where you have to fight a tank?
Panthers! Fall back! Fall back! Now! Run! Run! We got nowhere to run! Out of way! Up the road!
After playing for an hour, we have unlocked the kitchen. I don't know what I was expecting. It's a cartoonish looking kitchen. The bedroom had lots of toys and crayon scribbled cardboard to sell the idea of a child's army fantasy made manifest, but here we just have a kitchen. I did notice a Jeep during the fly around. I'm not sure why they included it for this mission, as the objectives and level layout aren't made for it. The Jeep is clear across the room, and it's obvious from my spawn point they want me to head up onto the counter instead. Driving the Jeep is as cumbersome to control as you might expect. I mean, the kitchen does have its own song, so it's got that going for it, I guess. I think it's time to wrap up this video. I'm starting to feel like I'm picking on a kid because their parent bought them shoes at Payless. For the record, I'm a Payless kid. I grew up thinking Kohl's was high-end fashion. I want to say this next part with utmost sincerity and be perfectly clear that I genuinely want to know, how did this game happen? There is a legitimate reason, a set of circumstances that can explain how this game turned out the way it did, and I would love to know all about it. Global Star bought the Army Men rights when 3DO sank. From there, they published two Army Men titles, Sarge's War and Major Malfunction. Global Star's assets were then absorbed into 2K Play in 2007. They were already owned by 2K, so I don't know what the purpose of corporate absorption is. Absorption. Soldiers of Misfortune came out in 2008. The developer was Big Blue Bubble, a Canadian company who primarily makes mobile games but couldn't resist making something for three of the best-selling video game platforms of all time. The publisher of Amsum was Zoo Entertainment, who rebranded as Indie Pub before their demise. Near as I can tell, they were never owned by 2K. My guess, and I stress, this is a guess, is 2K had zero interest in spending money on any more Army Men titles after the two from Global Star flopped, and perhaps Zoo paid them for publishing rights? Another possibility is 2K could have fronted development costs in return for all of the sales money, but then I'm not sure what's in it for Big Blue. Or maybe Zoo and Big Blue Bubble had already made a game about a little boy who shrinks down and fights his toys, then approached 2K about slapping the Army Men brand on it. Whatever the case may be, we got an Army Men game for the PlayStation 2 that controls like a Wii game and has an owner's manual for a DS game. That's right, I forgot to mention, Amsum also came out on the Nintendo DS. They didn't even bother updating the controls when they ported the game over from the Wii. Why should they have to write the game's instructions more than once? Here, look at this part of the owner's manual that talks about the HUD. We're looking at equipment selection. This is Timmy's backpack, located in the bottom left corner of the top screen. Top screen? There's only one screen. This is PlayStation 2. And this HUD element is located at the bottom right of the screen on PlayStation 2. This now unceremoniously concludes another video where I play a game and dictate what I see and occasionally regurgitate information easily found on Wikipedia. Don't forget to donate, kids! I don't have a lot of free time. Why am I spending it on this?